This is Nick with logosbynick.com, and in today's tutorial I'll be demonstrating how you can create this vector credit card graphic using Inkscape. And at any point in this tutorial you could look down at the bottom left hand side of my screen to see which mouse clicks and keystrokes I'm using. And if you'd like to know how you can make Inkscape appear dark and with these custom icons like you see here on my screen, I'll have a link to that information in the description of this video, so just check there. And the first thing we're going to do in Inkscape is make sure our view is set to custom. And then we're going to zoom in at 1:1. And then we're going to open up the Align and Distribute menu with this button up top. And we're going to want Last Selected chosen from that drop down. And then we'll open up the Edit Objects, Colors, Gradients, and Stroke menu with that button right there. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a rectangle. So we'll come over to the Squares and Rectangles tool, and I'm just going to click and drag to create a rectangle about the shape and size of a credit card, like that. And I'm going to take this little node up here, this little round node in the top right corner, and just bring that down to round the corners. And finalize that by converting it to a path. We'll go to Path, Object to Path. And we go back to our Select tool. And let's color this thing in. I'm going to make this, I'm going to start out with a shade of like an aqua blue like that. And I'm going to come up here to the Fill tab, and I'm going to click on this box that says Linear Gradient. I'm going to give that a linear gradient. And then we're going to click on our Gradient tool, which is right here. Or what you could do is just press G on the keyboard to get that. And I'm going to take this left handle, this left node, and put this in the bottom left corner. And I'll take this node and put this in the top right corner. And I'm going to make that node, I'm going to bring the opacity all the way up. And I'm going to make that a shade of green, like that. So we have this nice blue to green gradient on our debit card here. So let me go back to the Select tool. And let me right click that and go to Duplicate to make a second copy. And then I'm going to grab the Circles and Ellipses tool. And I'm just going to click and drag to create a big ellipse like that. And I'll go back to the Select tool. Let me make this red, or you can make it any color you want. Bring the opacity down in half just so I can see the layer beneath it. Make this a little bigger. Maybe about that size. Actually, no, bring that up a little bit. Maybe about that size. That looks pretty good. And then I'll hold Shift and click on the shape beneath it and go to Path, Difference. And I'll turn that white, and I'll bring the opacity of that down about that much. And maybe bring that up a little bit. And I'm going to create another shape like that going this way though. So let me click on this and then right click it and go to Duplicate. And I'm going to create another ellipse. I'm going to click and drag to create an ellipse like that. Let me turn this red so I can see it. Go back to the Select tool, and I'm just going to size this thing up. Whoops. About that much. Maybe I'll bring that up there. That's pretty good. And I'll hold Shift, click on that shape, go to Path, Difference, turn that white, bring the opacity down, maybe about that much, and click off of that to deselect. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create like another little design right here. Let me show you in the thumbnail. If you notice, you see I got like those white stripes, those faint white stripes going in there. I'm going to create that now. So in order to create that, let me grab the rectangle tool and just click and drag and create a rectangle. I'm going to turn that red, and I don't want rounded corners, so I'm going to click on this button that says Make Corners Sharp, and convert that to a path by going to Path, Object to Path. Go back to the Select tool, and then I'm going to right click this and go to Duplicate and hold Control on the keyboard and click and drag this over to the right. And then I'm just going to take this little handle right here and just bring that in to make that much, much thinner than that. And then I'm going to hold Shift and click on this other one and go to Extension, Generate from Path, Interpolate. And I'm going to go ahead and click on Live Preview. And for Exponent, I'm going to leave that at -0.1. Interpolation steps, 9. Maybe I'll go with 7, see how that looks. Okay, I'll use 7, that was pretty good. And interpolation method 1. Duplicate end paths, no, you want that unchecked. Interpolate style, live preview, yeah. Just pretty much how you see it set up here on my screen. So once that's done, go ahead and click Apply. And then we can close out of that. And then we can click and drag over all of that. And I'm going to ungroup it, because the interpolate tool gave us those shapes with them grouped together, so we have to ungroup it with the ungroup button. And I'm going to come down with all those selected. I'm going to come down here to the distribute panel, and I'm going to click on the button that says make horizontal gaps between objects equal, just to space them all out evenly like that. And then we can unify them together by going to Path, Union. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring this over here. I'm going to click on it a second time to get the rotation handles, and I'm going to hold Control and grab this top right corner and just rotate that. Whoops, grabbed the wrong thing. Hold Control, grab that, and rotate that around until it's going like that. And we can just place this right here. We can click on our blue shape right there, right-click that, go to Duplicate, hold Shift, click on that shape, go to Path, Intersection. We can turn that white, and the opacity about 25, maybe a little higher. That looks pretty good. Whatever looks good to you, go ahead and eyeball that. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put like a little globe graphic up here in the top right corner. If you look at the thumbnail here, you see like this little globe graphic. To do that, I'm going to go to Extension, Render, and down here you'll see Wireframe Sphere. Click on that. And I'm going to turn on the live preview to see how that looks. And you'll see the parameters I have set here, 814, 35, 120, 100, and all of these checked. Just like that, set it up like that to create that globe. And go ahead and click Apply. And then we can close out of that. And here we have our little globe graphic. So I'm going to put this in the top right corner, and then I'm going to click on it again to get the rotation handles. And I'm going to hold Control and click and drag to rotate that around until the top part of the globe is showing within the blue-green shape, because I want that element to be included in the design. And it's currently black right now. I'm going to turn this white by holding Shift and clicking on the color white, and that's going to turn that white. And then I'll click on our blue-green shape, right-click that, and go to Duplicate. Then hold Shift and click on the globe. It should be somewhere over here. We can't really see it because it's white. And you'll know you'll have it selected when you see that. And with them both selected, go to Object, Clip, Set. Just like that. So let me see what's next here. I'm going to click off of that to deselect everything. Let me go back to the thumbnail, see what's next. I'm going to create the numbers and the wording here next. That'll be the next step. So let me grab the text tool, click on the canvas. And I'm just going to write some random numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then space. 5, 6, 7, 8. Space, 9, 10, 11, and then one more. 11, 12, and another one. Just any random numbers. 4 groups of 4 numbers. That works pretty good. And the font I'm going to use is called Orbitron. I'll put a link to that in the description if you'd like to download that font and use it as well. I'll come up here to the text editor, and I'm going to find that font called Orbitron. And I want to use the heavy variation of it. That's pretty good. We go ahead and click Apply. And close out of that. Click on the select tool and just let's put this up over here. And then hold Control and just scale this in, maybe about that much. That's pretty good like that. And I'm going to make this white, or maybe an off shade of white. Maybe like a very, very light gray like that. And to make this look like it's coming off the card a little bit, like it's almost like a raised up, like raised print, I'm going to right click that and go to Duplicate. And I'm going to turn that black. And I'm going to zoom in on this. Let me just press plus on the keyboard a few times to zoom in. And then I'll hold Control and just click and drag this down a little bit. Maybe about that much. And I'm going to lower that one step with the button that says lower selection one step. And I'll just take the opacity and bring that down about that much. And let me press 1 on the keyboard to zoom back out and see how that looks. Alright, that's coming along pretty nicely. So the next thing I'm going to do is put the little expiration date on there. I'll right click that and go to Duplicate, hold Control and click and drag this down to here. And I'm going to make this text smaller because when you look at a credit card, the expiration date text is usually smaller. And I'm just going to hold Control and scale this down about that much. And go back to the text tool. And I'm just going to erase this and write 09/22 or whatever date you want to put on there. Go back to the select tool. And again, I'm going to raise this text up by putting a little drop shadow beneath it. So let me zoom in by pressing plus on the keyboard a few times. I'll right click that, go to Duplicate, turn that black, hold Control and click and drag it down about that much, and lower that one step beneath that text, and bring the opacity down about that much. And press 1 on the keyboard to zoom back out. And then finally, just to put like a name right here, I just write valued customer or whatever jargon that they use on promotional stuff like this. Click on this, right click it, duplicate, hold Control, and just click and drag that down to here. Go back to the text tool, and I'm just going to erase that. I'm going to turn on the caps lock. I'm just going to write valued customer. And I'll go back to the select tool. I'll press plus on the keyboard a few times to zoom in. And again, we're going to put a drop shadow under this by right-clicking and going to duplicate. We turn that black. Hold Control, click and drag it down a little bit. And put that beneath the valued customer, the white text. I'm actually going to move that up just a hair. If you want to move that up a little bit without using the arrow keys, you can come up here to the y-axis and just click on that a few times. And that's a pretty good way to move things when it's locked on the y-axis. And then I'm just going to bring the opacity of that down as well. And let me click off to deselect and press 1 to zoom back out and see what the next step will be. You know what? I don't like this shade of blue that's being used here, so I'm just going to go to the gradient tool. I'm going to press G on the keyboard and click on that. And I'm going to click on this node right here where the blue stop is, and I'm just going to change the color of that a little bit. Yeah, that's a little better. Then we go back to the select tool. Click off of that to deselect, and the next step is to put that little microchip right there. So let me grab the squares and rectangles tool and click and drag to create a little rectangle right there. Bring the opacity up. I'm going to get rid of that white outline by holding Shift and clicking the X. And I'm going to grab this little node up here and round the corners. And I'll convert that to a path, object to path. And I'm going to make this a, not quite yellow, but like an off shade, like a gold, almost a gold color. Maybe that. That looks pretty good right there. That DEC D87. I'll go with that. And let me go back to the select tool and let me zoom in on that so I can see it. Again, we're just pressing plus and minus to zoom in and out. I'll go to path and linked offset. And I'm going to grab this node. Actually, no, before I do that, I'm going to come over to the Fill tab, and under the HSL tab, I'm going to take this L column and slide that to the right a little bit to make that lighter. And then I'm going to grab this node and pull that out a little bit. About that much. That's pretty good. And then we can go to Path, Object to Path, and that finalizes it. Let me go back to the Select tool. Let me press 1 on the keyboard to zoom back out. And now it's time to put those little lines in there. To do that, I'm just going to grab the squares and rectangles tool. I'm just going to click and drag and create little lines right there. Let me zoom in again so I could get a better view and make the corner sharp. Go to the select tool, and I'm just going to come over here to the L column, and again I'm going to slide this to the left to make this darker. Put that like that. Right click that, go to duplicate, hold Control, move this over here. And we could duplicate that again. We could just, instead of right clicking it, we just go to Control D and that'll duplicate it. Hold Control, move that over there. And I'm going to hold Shift and click on the other two so we have all 3 of these selected. And we just want to make sure that these are spaced out evenly by clicking on Make Horizontal Gaps Between Objects Equal. And we could unify them together. We can go to Path, Union, hold Shift, click on the lighter shape beneath it. Make sure it's centered on the vertical and horizontal axis. Click off of it to deselect, and let's click on this lighter shape right here. And we can right click that and go to duplicate. Hold Shift, click on those lines so we have them both selected, and go to Path, Intersection. And I'm going to create another line like that, but going horizontally through this. So back to the rectangle tool. Just click and drag to create another line like that. And that's pretty good. Go back to the select tool. Hold Shift and click on the lighter rectangle, and we're going to center it on the vertical horizontal axis. Click off of it to deselect, and then we'll click on this lighter shape. Right click that, go to duplicate, hold Shift and click on that line and go to Path, Intersection. And finally we're going to have to put a little circle in there, as you see here on my my thumbnail. Let's click on the circles and ellipses tool. Just hold Control and Shift and click and drag to create a circle like that. Go back to the Select tool. I'm going to hold Shift and click on that lighter rectangle and center it on the vertical and horizontal axis. Click off to deselect. And I'm going to click on this circle. I'm going to duplicate that. I'm going to hit Control D to duplicate that. And I'm going to make this the same shade that this lighter shade of gold is right here. So let me press F7 on the keyboard to get the dropper tool, or you can just click on it over here. And I'm just going to click and drag that little segment to make that the same shade. We'll go back to the Select tool and hold Control and Shift and scale that in a little bit. And that's pretty good. I'll press 1 on the keyboard to zoom back out and see how that looks. Alright, that looks alright. The next step would be to put this little silver patch right here. This is normally there's like a little there's like a silhouette of the continents there, but I just use like those little circles there. So let's go ahead and create that. Let's go to the rectangles tool and click and drag to create a big well, not big, but a decent sized rectangle right there. And we'll round the corners. That's pretty good. And convert that to a path, object to path. And you know what? Let me go to the Select tool and just make that a little taller, a little higher. That's pretty good. And I'm going to come down here to the color picker and I'm going to make that a light shade of gray. And I'm going to give that a linear gradient by clicking on this button. And then I'll press G on the keyboard to get the gradient tool. And I'll click on this stop, bring the opacity up, and then take the L column and slide that to the right to make this white. And I'll put this gray stop down here, and I'll put this white stop up here, and then just hold Control on the keyboard so it goes straight up vertically. And I'm actually going to click on this stop and slide this to the left a little bit to make this a little darker because you can't really see the difference between the two shades. And then I'll go to the circles and ellipses tool. I'm just going to hold Control and Shift and click and drag to create a circle in there. I'll go back to the Select tool, and let me zoom in on this so I can get a better view. Press plus on the keyboard. And I'm going to put this right here. Right click that, go to duplicate, hold Control, click and drag this over to about there. Hold Shift, click on the other circle, and we're going to unify it together by going to Path, Union. And I'm going to give this the same gradient that we gave the shape that we just created. So we'll just click on Linear Gradient, and I'll go to the drop down and choose this gradient. Only we're going to reverse it. So let's press G on the keyboard to get the gradient tool. And I'm going to put the darker gray up top and the white on the bottom, and then just hold Control so it goes straight up and down like that. And we'll go back to the Select tool, hold Shift, click on the shape beneath it, and just make sure it's centered on the vertical and horizontal axis. Then we can click off of it to deselect, and we can press 1 on the keyboard to zoom back out. Now another thing I forgot to do is this globe right here. I'm going to click on that and bring the opacity down a little bit. I don't like how pronounced that is. Make that a little lighter like that, and that's pretty good. And next here would just be, I'm just going to put some writing up here that says Platinum Rewards or whatever, you know, just typical jargon you see on these cards. So let me click off of that and deselect. We'll go to the text tool and click on the canvas. I'm just going to write Platinum Rewards, and I'll make that italics. Go to the Select tool and put this up top here. Just hold Control and just scale that down a little bit. That's pretty good. And I'll make that white. And I'll go to the rectangle tool, and I'm just going to click and drag and create a rectangle going through there. Just like a little line. And that's pretty good. Let me make the corners sharp. Bring the opacity all the way up. Go to the Select tool. I'm just going to bring that up a little bit. And you know what? I'm going to make that a little thinner. I don't like how thick that is. And that's pretty good. I'll press 1 on the keyboard to zoom back out and click off of it to deselect everything. And the next step is going to be creating the back side of the card. So let's click and drag over this whole thing and right click it and go to duplicate. And I'm just going to hold Control and just click and drag this off to the left and click off of it to deselect. And I'm just going to go and click and delete on these things. I'm going to just click and press delete on the keyboard just to delete these items that we just created on the other one. We don't need all of this for the back side of the card anyway. And there's the base of the design right there. And we're going to create that little magnetic strip right there. So let's grab the rectangle tool and we'll just click and drag going up here like that. And I'm going to make that 90% gray. And we'll go to the select tool, click on the bluish greenish rectangle, right click that, go to duplicate, then hold shift and click on the black stripe right there and go to path, intersection. And I'm going to give that a gradient, so I'll click on the linear gradient tool, or that button rather, press G on the keyboard to get the gradient tool, and then click on this stop, and we'll bring the opacity all the way up. And I'll come over here to the L column and slide that to the right a little bit to make that lighter. And I'll put the light stop up top here and the darker stop at the bottom. And again, once I get it to the bottom, I'm just going to hold Control on the keyboard so it locks it to the y-axis so it goes straight up and down like that. And again, let me go to the select tool, and I'm going to zoom in on this. I'm just going to press plus a few times. I'm going to right click that and go to duplicate, and I'm going to turn that black, or 90% gray actually. And what I'm going to do here, if you notice it almost looks like it's beveled or raised. That's what I'm doing right here on that black stripe. So let me take this arrow and bring that up to about here, like that. Then I'll right click that and go to duplicate and hold shift and click on the bigger black stripe beneath it. We're going to align the bottom edges. And then we can hold shift and click on that bigger black stripe again to deselect it. And now we just have this little one selected down here. I'm going to press F7 to get the dropper. And again, if F7 doesn't work, the dropper tool should be down here. And I'm going to make this the same shade that this is right here, but only I'm going to make it a little lighter, like that. And we'll go to the select tool, press 1 to zoom back out, click off of that to deselect. And the next step would be to create this little white strip right here with the signature text on it. So let me grab the rectangle tool, click and drag to create a rectangle going through this thing here, and I'll turn that white. I'll go back to the select tool, and I'm just going to hold shift and click on the shape, the big rectangle, and just make sure it's centered vertically, and click off it to deselect. And right here, I'm going to put some like some diagonal text going through here, like you see here. I just wrote text, 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 text. Because if you look at the back of a card, you'll see that there's like this very faint text on most cards anyway. On mine there is. I mean, there's this text on there. So let's go ahead and create that text. I'll go to the text tool. I'm just going to click on the canvas, turn on the caps lock. I'm going to write text. Whoops, text. And I'll click and drag over that and copy it. I'm just gonna press Control C on the keyboard to copy that. And I'm just gonna paste that a bunch of times. And actually, let me go back to the select tool, and I'm just gonna scale that. I'm gonna hold Control and scale that down a little bit. We don't want that big. And let me go back to the text tool, click and drag over all of that, and I'll copy that. Go to copy. Make that another row of that, and then I'll just click and drag over all of that and copy that. And I'll go back here to the end. I'm just going to press enter to create another line, and I'm just going to hit Control V to paste. And hit enter, Control V, enter, Control V, and I'm going to do this a bunch of times. We want a great big wall of text. That's pretty good like that. And then we can go and click on we can grab our select tool, and we're going to put this over that white stripe right there. And click on this a second time to get the rotation handles. And I'm going to hold Control and just rotate this around until it's going like horizontal, well not horizontal, like diagonal like that. And then I'll click it again to get back to the scaling handles. And I'm just going to hold Control and Shift and scale it in about that much. Now let's grab that white strip by holding Alt and clicking on it. And then let's duplicate that by pressing Control D, and then hold Shift and click on the text and go to Object, Clip, Set. And the color of this, I'm going to make this very, very light, very faint, almost like where you can't see it. And that's pretty good. Let me see if I missed anything here. Okay, I think that's pretty much everything. Let me press 1. Actually, I am zoomed out. Let's click and drag over this whole back side of the card and group that together. And we click and drag over this whole back side of the card and group that together. And I'm going to take this side and I'm going to raise this to the top with this button up here, raise selection to the top. And I'll click on it a second time to get the rotation handles. And I'm just going to hold Control on the keyboard and grab one of these corner arrows and rotate this around maybe 2 steps. Yeah, that's good like that. We'll do the same thing right here. Click on that. click it a second time to get the rotation handles, hold Control, rotate it around 2 steps, and then take this side and hold Control and just click and drag this over here. And one last final step would be to put like a little shadow behind it, like you see here in the thumbnail. So let me ungroup this. I'll go to Ungroup, and then I'll click on this one and I'll ungroup that as well. And I'll click on this big, this shape right here. We want that selected. And we're going to duplicate that. You can just press Control D on the keyboard. And I'm going to turn that black. And I'll click it a second time to get the rotation handles. And when I do that, there's going to be this little crosshair that shows up. I'm going to take this crosshair and put it down in this bottom left corner. And then I'll click it again to get back to the scaling handles. So I could take this one and scale this down. Click it again to get back to the rotation handles. Slide this out like that. Maybe I'll bring that up a little bit. And I'm going to lower this down. Lower selection 1 step. I'm going to click this a few times until it goes beneath the entire front side of the card. Oops. There we go. And you know what? Let me edit this a little more and get this more behind so it looks a little better. And you can just play with this. You just keep clicking and scaling. Like when you click on it, you get the scaling handles like this. But when you click on it again, you get the rotation handles, which also gives you the side sliding handles like that. So, all right, once it's positioned right about there, I'll just take the opacity and bring that down a little bit. And I'll press 1 on the keyboard to zoom back out. Actually, I am zoomed out. Let's click and drag over all of this and group it all together. And then just hold Control and Shift and scale it down. And then you can see that's pretty much it. There's our vector credit card graphic using Inkscape. So if you have any questions, let me know. And as always, thank you for watching.